Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Championship Leadership Podcast today. And we're excited. We got Michele Molitor here from San Francisco. So, Michele, thank you so much for taking some time to be here today.
Thanks so much for having me, Nate. I'm happy to be here with you.
Absolutely. So, the first question I love asking just to kick off the conversation is championship leadership is the name of the podcast. What comes to mind for you, or what does that mean to you when you hear championship leadership?
Well, for me, Nate, that means really how do you be the best version of yourself to be an outstanding leader? Who do you need to be to show up fully, authentically, to be an inspiring leader that people want to follow, want to support in the work of the greater good that's being done with whatever organization it might be?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I always love asking that question just because I always get a different answer, which is amazing to me because it's like, how many ways can we splice championship leadership? But it's
Yeah,
fun to
exactly.
hear all the different ways that it is defined. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and who you are, the path that you've been on, and, what that has you doing today and what it is that you're up to today in your life.
Sure. So I have been an executive coach now for almost 20 years. I call myself an executive confidence coach and rapid rewire expert because I do deep dive coaching with folks, helping them get at the subconscious limiting beliefs that are getting in their way and preventing them from showing up fully and preventing them from showing up authentically. Because in my former career, I was a creative director in web development, which brought me here to the San Francisco Bay Area at the height of the dot-com boom many years ago, and essentially got bullied out of my job. And it was super painful and devastating for me, and it shattered my confidence. And it took me a while to figure out how to find it again. And in the process of that quest, I discovered coaching, which had me realize, oh, this is really my life's calling, the work that I'm meant to be doing. So I went on to get trained and certified in various different modalities, started my own company, Nectar Consulting, in 2001, and have been doing it ever since. So it's truly my passion and my purpose. And I really love the work that I do because my unique rapid rewiring methodology is a unique combination that brings together coaching combined with cognitive behavioral therapy, neuro-linguistic programming, and hypnotherapy. So all of that together really allows me to very quickly get at the blocks that are holding people back because they're buried deep in their subconscious. They know that there might be a block, but they can't quite figure out how to get at it. And it's extremely powerful. And I've helped people eliminate blocks, mental, emotional, physical blocks in 30 to 90 days that they've been trying to get rid of for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So it's pretty fun stuff.
Wow. Yeah. Well, if you would, like you mentioned a pretty pivotal point in your life, getting bullied out of a job. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit more about that. In a way, it sounds like it was a blessing, looking back on it. I'm sure in the midst of it, it didn't feel that way, but because it has you doing what you are today. But maybe you could talk a little bit more about that and just even from a leadership standpoint of obviously there was some lack in leadership there somewhere too as well that allowed that to happen. So if you would, or if you're comfortable, talk a little bit more about how that's
Absolutely.
catapulted you to where you are.
Absolutely. It was very much a catalytic moment in my life. And, I had moved, I had been picked from a nationwide search to fill this position. It was a hot .com startup. We were literally IPOing the week that I was starting. And that was the week the market crashed instead. I was like,
No.
oh, I have a
Oh,
golden
no.
ticket that's invalid. Oh,
Wow.
darn, Margie.
Yeah.
And so we were all working very hard to get back to that place of IPO, which never did happen, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And hiring, I was growing my team and hired two different guys for my team at director levels. And they made it very clear to me very quickly that they didn't like working for a woman. One of them literally got up in my face and was like, I can't work for someone who's not smarter than me. I was like, okay. And at the time, I didn't have the chutzpah that I have developed
Yeah,
and possess these days.
Yeah.
And I would have had some choice words for him. But in that moment, I was very much a deer in the headlights, and I didn't know what to say or how to do it. And they took, they used that to their advantage.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to deal with that level of corporate politics and confrontation. I've learned a lot since then, purposefully, but in that moment, it was very, very difficult, and it had me shrink and shrink and shrink, and was hiding out. But I was, pedaling like hell under the surface of the water, trying to make sure I had it all together. I was living a false self. I was, doing my very best, right? In hindsight, with everything that I had, and very capable to do the job that I was hired to do. And yet the words, their actions of these few individuals really very quickly chipped away at my self-esteem and my self-confidence. And I was having anxiety attacks, and it was horrible. The whole time was really horrible. And then the day that I ultimately was let go, I called my mom to tell her about my bad day. And my mother is very stoic, and I've never seen my mother cry once, and she's 82. Wow. She's an amazing woman. And something was wrong. I was like, what's going on, Mom? And she's like, well, our friend is dying, and a very dear friend of the family was dying of AIDS. And he'd only told my parents and two other close friends. And he refused to take the cocktail of drugs that would have prolonged his life, but he was too afraid to be who he was. And so he allowed himself to die, essentially. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, my whole world just like shifted. I was like, so what? You lost your effing job today. Our dear friend is dying. Get over it. And it was quite shocking. So the next day I happened to be going on vacation with my family. And so I decided that next Friday when I got home, that was going to be the first day of the rest of my life, Nate. And I was going to get on with doing what I need to do to figure out what was next. And that was the day that my friend Al died. My dad called me to wake me up that morning and tell me that bad news. And it just really struck me like, wow, my friend Al let himself die because he was too afraid to be who he was. So I made a pledge to him and to myself in that moment, like, all right, put on your big girl panties, figure out what you got to do, and don't live your life based on from a place of fear. And so I've really dedicated my work to him and to really helping others find their way out from underneath that rock of fear that holds them back. And it creates emotional, physical manifestations. And I'm very proud of the work that I've been able to accomplish and the work that I've done with folks from all over the world. So that's kind of the background moment from it all.
Yeah. And it sounds like it was, you had some quick perspective shifts, and sounds like you kind of came out of that fairly quickly. I'm sure it was a progression and a journey, and not an overnight type success, but at the same time,
quite a journey.
There are a lot of people that end up staying in maybe that place, that darker place, for much longer. So, who are some of the leaders, the championship leaders, or coaches or mentors that have impacted you, and more so, like, what is it about them, the characteristics, the traits that they had that maybe you've taken and even helped to mold who you are as a leader?
Sure. A couple people pop to mind. The first one is my dad. My parents have been business partners and entrepreneurs for my whole life.
Yeah.
And they've done, a lot of amazing things in their lives. And, in difficult moments, I know that I can always turn to my father for um, advice and perspective. And ultimately, he'll always say to me, well, that's my perspective, but you do what you think is best.
Yeah.
Right. Like, here's another perspective for you to try on, but listen to your heart and do what's
Yeah.
right for you, because what's right for me is not always right for him or whoever else. Right.
Yeah.
And then the other person that comes to mind is a colleague and mentor and friend. Her name is Sheila Lewis, and she's an amazing entrepreneur and innovative strategist, essentially. And we met several years ago, and one of the most amazing consultants and leaders I've ever met, actually.
Yeah.
We've collaborated on several projects since then. And we were asking a group of executives, when did they first see themselves as leaders? We were doing an executive retreat with them. And she started off by saying, when I first realized I was a leader, I was in kindergarten. I just noticed that I tended to take charge of things, and that's just how she's lived her whole life. I've never met anyone, well, I've met very few people who have that innate sense of confidence and leadership deeply, deeply embedded with them. And so she's given me a lot of great insights and has been a mentor and role model for me to, like, oh, okay, there's another fear that I can let go of, and notice how our beliefs, continue to get in our way despite 20 years of personal development work. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the vision for you? You got Nectar Consulting. I think championship leaders have incredible vision, but not just the vision. They also have the courage to be able to execute on it, right? To go and actually take something that others can't see and might even be like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Like, that's crazy. And to then actually go and execute on it and like implement it, put it into play for your life. What's the vision or the impact that you're looking to make over the, let's say, near term future, maybe even just 5 years from now?
Sure. Well, for me, it's really about how can I be of assistance to more people, especially in these challenging times, Nate. The
Yeah.
world seems like
Right.
it's gone a bit mad this year.
Yeah.
We need to reboot 2020.
Definitely.
And so I've been reaching out, doing more master classes. I did several of this in March and April, called Conquering Fear and Anxiety in Uncertain Times, and really just giving folks advice and tools to really help calm that inner voice of fear. I attribute it to Amy. Amy's your amygdala. Your amygdala is your fight or flight mechanism in your brain. She's a little lizard lady from your limbic
Call her
brain.
Amy. I like it.
I call her Amy. And Amy's always trying to, keep safe and alive, but sometimes her best efforts are misconstrued, shall we say, and hold us back. So sharing, tools, information, ebooks, doing other master classes. Beginning of this year, pre-COVID, I launched my new RAPID REWIRE membership program so that I can be of service to more people all around the world.
Yeah.
It provides, each month we have different topics that we cover. For example, this month we're talking about passion and purpose. How do you step more into your passion and purpose? And part of the individual work that I do with clients is I create what I call my customized transformation recording. And it's essentially a guided hypnosis recording that enables folks to literally rewire their thinking, right? Your brain likes repetition. So the more you listen to a recording, the more you think a thought, the more true it becomes for you. Just like when you listen to a song on the radio over and over and over again, you can recite it word for word. You can sing along. It's all kind of embedded in your body.
Yeah.
So the transformation recordings that I create, focus on different topics and really help folks get at the underlying beliefs that are holding them back, and reprogram them much more easily, more quickly, so they can elevate their thinking, their perspectives, and step more powerfully into their own success and achieve their dreams and goals more quickly. So lots of fun stuff, but ultimately it's just, how do I create a bigger impact? How do I touch more lives? Because I know that once you've erased a fear, you've eliminated a fear in your body, there's more room for growth and more room for joy, happiness, peace, and balance. And the more we can have that individually, then collectively, the more we'll have that. And hopefully that can create a positive impact on the planet in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you. And that's very interesting. I love the stuff on the rewiring and the recorded messages. And where did that come from?
So several years ago, I, in my quest to be the best version of myself, right,
Yeah.
to be my most authentic self, I discovered the work of Marissa Peer. She's a world-renowned therapist, and the pioneer of this methodology called rapid transformational therapy, or RTT for short. And I did some work with Marissa, and it was so completely life-changing for me in a matter of weeks. Things that I had been trying to get at for 20 plus years in my own self. Like, I knew I had this block, but I can't quite get it out, pull it out by the roots.
Yeah.
I was able to do that. So she started training people in her methodology. I went on to get trained and certified with her. I've worked as one of her graduate trainers. I've worked with her and her team on building some other programs as well. And part of that work that I have incorporated into my coaching, thus the rapid rewiring program, as I call it, that's part of that process. It's a multi-stepped process over 30 days that includes a deep dive session where I'm essentially putting you into a very relaxed state of being an alpha brainwave state, which is just below that conscious state. You're kind of half awake, half asleep. But you're able to answer the questions that I have for you, and we're able to get at the root causes, the underlying events where you developed beliefs about yourself, like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm different, I don't fit in, I don't belong, whatever those might be that are impacting you on these different levels. And we're able to literally rewrite them, rescript them while you're in this relaxed state. And then the last part of that session, I'm taking everything that I've gathered from the client and weaving it into this transformation recording that speaks directly to them, to their subconscious, instilling new empowering beliefs, thoughts, habits, behaviors. And as they listen to it every night, as they drift off to sleep for 21 to 30 days, they're literally building new habits, new ways of thinking and operating in the world that can create subtle changes or very impactful overnight changes. I had one client I worked with who had severe physical issues, adrenal fatigue, gut biome issues. And he texted me the next day after we had our very first session together, and he was like, best 24 hours ever.
Awesome.
So it's pretty amazing stuff. I mean, I'm constantly amazed. I feel like I'm like a detective that I go in and I find these disparate parts and I weave them together to help create this transformation for folks that leaves them feeling like a whole different person sometimes, in a good way.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. I love it. What's a defining moment for you, or a critical moment for you? And I know we've already talked probably about one of the major ones for yourself, but I think there's a lot of listeners, entrepreneurs and business owners that listen in, and a lot of them are in that kind of that fork in the road moment where trying to figure out which way to go. And obviously we all have those moments, probably quite a few of them, but I think there's a good handful of them that are really, really kind of the ones that stand out. And you obviously made the decision that you did in that moment that has you where you are today. But is there another moment in your life that really stands out to where, man, if you'd made a different choice than you did, like you could be in a very different place today?
Oh gosh, there's a couple of things that pop up, but
Yeah.
I think probably one of the most pivotal ones was um, in doing the work with Marissa Peer, realizing the the very subtle, deeply buried belief that I had that I wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized it and I was able to transform it, it's like the lid popped off and all of me was finally available to show up. Right. I've done, I'm a learning junkie, right?
Yeah.
I love,
Yeah.
can I have another workshop, please? That's really
Right.
fun. Right. And so I've done a lot of work on myself. I've done a lot of different modalities because I find it fascinating and I'm always like, okay, let's, shed another layer.
Yeah.
And that doing that work really was powerful because um, being able to unearth the belief that I had that I didn't know that I had, and how insidious it was and showing up in so many different places in my life, from how I ran my business to how I marketed my business to how I felt about myself, right? Lots of different layers to it. And you change that belief and then you look back and go, well, why would I ever think that? Right? It's amazing how quickly it can change your perspective and your whole body changes to realign with it very quickly sometimes. So that's, for everyone who's listening, that's the very simplest thing that you can do is just ask yourself, do you feel that you're enough? And
Yeah.
if the answer is no, then, let's talk,
Yeah.
right? Because you can change that. And I don't care what has happened to you in your lifetime. I've worked with people who've been through horrific traumas, right?
Right.
But they're still able to shift that belief in themselves, which then has them show up very, very differently.
Yeah. 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 Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. What, as we start to wrap this up, if there were one or two things that you could give the listeners that if they implemented today, if they took action today, it would help them move their life forward, what would those be?
Uh, the first thing that comes to mind is rewire your brain, think new thoughts, and your life will follow. Right.
Yeah.
So noticing the thoughts that aren't serving you, noticing the disempowering beliefs that you have about yourself and how they're showing up for you. And choose. Does it feel good to tell yourself those negative thoughts, or does it feel bad? Because if it feels bad, then find something that feels better, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's just a little bit, and start to change the dialogue that you're having with yourself. And you'll be able to see how that starts to change how you show up as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. What are a few ways that we can follow you and find out more about what you got going on in your world?
Sure. Well, you can always find me on the social channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Michele Molitor, Molitor, or look up Rapid Rewire. You'll find me there too. And in Facebook, please come join my group, Rewire for Success. It's free. And we have, conversation, dialogue, tools, tips, all sorts of fun stuff there for you. And my website, of course, Nectar, Nectar consulting.com. And go to the brain candy section there. There's all sorts of free stuff for visitors to consume, to
I love it.
fatten their
Brain
brains
candy.
up with
I
good
love it.
stuff.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. And that's Michele with one L, correct?
Yes, Michele with one L. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Well, I really appreciate you taking time today to be with us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, my sincere pleasure, Nate. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Have a good day.
You too.